Thanks again for tuning in. Hacks of the 20th Century Museum. We are trying to go through the clothing of the 1900 decade. And we've kind of lopped back into the leg of mutton looking sleeve on this white blouse over the top here that we talked about. And see, that was more the end of the 1800s, 1997 there on that.
No.
Let's see if I can turn this. Here's a couple more blouses, but I see that, or at least one blouse, 1997.
No.
1897, thank you. Alrighty, that would be bad. And yet here we are. This is a picture for, I didn't write it down, but I think it's a 1902 magazine. And see how we've smoothed out our shoulders already. Incidentally, that's a picture of me with a replica type hat of that was purchased in 1990s. So everything repeats itself. Leg of mutton sleeve. So we had done this coat as well. So, which I want to think is more leg of mutton than maybe it is, but it's a wonderful old coat. Here we have a little organdy bow, which I thought, eureka, I found one, because they wore so many huge bows in the little girl's hair. But I am also, on second look, convinced that it could have been something that you just would have tacked to the back of your type of, organdy skirt also. Anyway, it's a wonderful old bow, however they used it. But this is an example of the type of blouson type dresses the little girls wore. And they've got some pretty good sized bows in their hair too. Got the picture? Alright, I'll move that around to the back. Because this little old frail dress is actually my grandmother's little blouson dress for when she was a little girl. So that's pretty special. Maybe I'll set it over here. And we'll keep moving along. We went from the big puffy leg of muffin, although, this is kind of a leg of muffin too. Leg of mutton blouse. And it also has kind of a front blouson, so we're having a little of both here. And this is unusual because it's cotton. It's so easy to find these fancier things that Grandma kept forever in her chest, but this time we found a cotton one. And this business in the front we talked about when I did my programs for you, and maybe again during the display. This is the monobosom look of the early 1900s, where they threw their hips back with a little bustle and they had their fronts all full. So of course their blouses had to account for this fullness that was under the bust line. They called it pigeon-breasted or monobosom. So here's another top that would have gone with a black dress. Hooks and eyes all the way up. Some stays in the collar to keep it tall. Pretty thing. And it kind of has a lot of fullness. I mean, we did have the full sleeves, the gathered tops, but not to this extent generally. That leg of mutton stuff was really unique. Another beautiful top. We probably don't need to take a lot of time. Here's the stays again. Here's the monobosom. Nice lace, shorter sleeves. It's kind of an unusual sleeve length. Hooks and eyes up the back. And this one was one that was in my grandma's trunk. It has a separate lace dicky with, gosh, now this would be, should try to see that. The stay is a really stiff wire that zigzags back and forth. Isn't that unusual? But more invisible on a lace collar. Excuse me. Anyway, I even put some tissue in that paper, or that front, it looks like at one time. Hooks and eyes up the back. You couldn't have anything else. Here's a beautiful, oh my goodness. It's got bigger stays. Stays with covered with cotton. Yeah. Very tall collar. This seemed to be the type of collar that it even went up behind your ear. It didn't just go around your neck. It really pierced up to a point behind your ear. That's a beautiful blouse. Monobosom front. Beautiful lace. My gosh. Now we have buttons. So that's a different thing. Not that these are in perfect order of age, but similar. Here's one that would be a little cooler in the summer. No high collar at all. Mono bosom still, short sleeved. And I could sure see, I'll pull off one of these skirts here in a minute. I could sure see her wearing it with a white skirt and maybe putting that big bow I talked about, which could be for your hair or the back of your skirt. She could have done that, couldn't she? You do anything you want. Just another old organdy blouse. Another real challenge for somebody to iron. I really have washed all of these by just soaking them in an OxiClean type product and then iron them as carefully as I can, which is very difficult to iron this complicated stuff. And I have a modern day steam iron. I really pity what these women went through. Hooks and eyes in the back again. Just a very pretty blouse. And here's another one of what they called lingerie dresses. Nice stay at the back. Nothing else, just in the back of the collar. And they called them lingerie blouses the way I understand it, although I'm not really an expert on clothing. But they called them lingerie because you had to wear a slip under them. And boy, if that one doesn't make that a obvious situation. That was kind of unique because it has a little print and color. So here we are, and it's full length, of course. My cameraman says he has trouble. I'll back up and make it. All of these dresses, both of these dresses have been long, and probably, yeah, you can see that the front is shorter than the back, which is what they needed to have a very elegant little bit of drag as they walked. The back of the dress drug just a little. It really was striking. And here's a black seal. Since have enough old clothing, I recognize my furs, and this is soft as butter black seal cape with a huge button at the bottom, which would look like the huge button situations I had on a scarf back here. A huge ball thing. That was just kind of an interesting way to decorate things with these huge round balls. And I have an old coat up front here we looked at that has the big round fur buttons. There's the lining. A little chain across the front. Just a nice black seal cape. And here's a beautiful black seal. Well, it sure feels like it, but I don't understand how tends to be some color shading in it. Maybe it's the way they put the hides together. Gorgeous big muff. Has a extra pocket on a cord there, so you could have some small things with you. Beautiful thing. Beautiful. Just beautiful. Okay, I love this old stuff. All right. Now we'll go this way. We'll do some skirts. And maybe I'll come across to hang them up. So this isn't really anything special. It's just what I've been able to get my hands on easily. See the length, the drag it has? To have the front be that way, the back is dragging. So it's just a basic black print. Actually, it's a little bit of a plaid there. Skirt that could have gone with any of those blouses. And here's one that, this one actually has not come to you. This actually has a label. I don't find that too often. Most things seem to be homemade. But there we are with a label in the back. Got it? Back of a clearly old slip or skirt. I really can't tell you. I know there's a lot of fullness in the back for that little bustle we had. It was probably, I'm guessing, a slip because there is no tight closure here. There's just a drawstring. So anyway, if it would have had hooks and eyes at the back, it would have been pretty enough to be a skirt. This one seems to be a slip because of its taffeta type nature, but I'll come close to you. The belt and the bow and the detailing of pleats and all, and the back is got a placket with the hooks and eyes, so no one would ever be able to peek through and see your undergarments. So that one was clearly a skirt. Beautiful black taffeta skirt to go with any of those blouses. Here, all of these things I've gotten so reasonable. I haven't gone on a mission to try to find them. They find me. Here's a beautiful white one. with a wonderful drag behind it. Rows and rows of ruffles. Isn't that terrific? It does just have a placket, but I know it's a skirt. Well, I guess I don't know anything, so your guess is as good as mine. But with the design and the ruffles and the drag, I think it'd be a skirt. Here's another one. Same thing. It's either a beautiful slip or it's a nice skirt. Gosh, that seems to be a skirt. Don't that seem to be the bottom half of that? Isn't that something? Who knows? They're just so old. And I gotta tell you, they were in such a mess. Just a dirty, brown, smeared up, dingy, spotted mess. But between a spray and wash type product and OxyClean cleaners and a long time in a tub, I mean several days, you can bring anything back to pretty. Here's another one, a dotted Swiss. Either a slip or a skirt. Girls, I don't know which it was. And this one is definitely a skirt because it's got the hooks and eyes on a placket, so you couldn't get a peek of a cotton, heavy cotton. I thought for a moment I know what that should be called, but I can't. I'm too flustered. Anyway, nice slim white skirt for that era. Okay, this is the only dress I have, and boy, is that serious about being a pigeon-breasted bodice. If I get in there with my hand. Oh, I'm not gonna. I'd have to hurt something. But anyway, pigeon-breasted bodice, slight drag. It's velvet, hooks and eyes and snaps to get into it. Wooden beads, old lace. Straps on the inside to help support the weight, so it isn't all just on that sheer fabric. The only dress I have. You know, I still should get it out of our way so we can see what we're coming to here. Here's a walking suit. At least that's what I called it, and it is pigeon-breasted bodice too. And the skirt that went with it. Well, this one I did pay at least $40 for that because I had never seen a suit in my short travels. So I had to have that. It's just marvelous. Black lining, no labels. So I don't know, somebody maybe made it. Oh, I'm getting flustered where to hang it. There. Okay. These are bloomers. I have a friend who helped me look at this, and she knows more about clothing, and she said that these are ladies' bloomers. They were worn for swimming and sporting activities, like PE class at school and that type of thing. The elastics kind of lost its snap. But anyway, there's some serious bloomers. Let's look through the typewriter. I had bought this. Boy, we're really just taking this all apart. I had bought this because of the fabric. I think I only paid $4, and I thought, well, if you ever needed that to repair something else or do something. But, you know, I never did it because in and of itself, it's kind of interesting. It's, what do you call it? Manufacturers of society goods that had belonged to Ruth. So who knows what choir or whatever she was in. Let's go just a minute or two past that. Oh, it'd be great if we get these done. That would be wonderful. 3 shirts for men. Here's one that I just know is very old. Here's one that has a kind of a tuxedo front, but is very old. Okay, and here's one that is very old because it has the paper shirt front, which leads me to remember that all through my childhood, my parents had a little cardboard box that had a paper shirt front. No shirt attached to it, just the front. And boy, I wish we wouldn't have lost track of that. Monarch Company trademark. Oh, it looks like it cost $1. Jeez. So 17-inch neck, 32 sleeve. That seems kind of high. Now your sleeves had just this little bit, and you used the buttons, the appropriate buttons, to hook a proper size cuff on. Isn't this stuff just stiff and miserable? But then it's paper for the most part. And here's the collar that would have gone around, and you hooked the collar buttons back and at the front were hooked on with these, which I mistakenly called studs when they were in the display, but instead they're collar buttons with a flat part on the side toward your skin, and the other part goes through the holes to hook all of this together. And then it wasn't long ago that I saw an old movie where the fella going in for an interview had lost his collar button, so somebody else dug around on the back of their neck and lent him the collar button so his collar didn't stick up in the back. So women had miserable time being dressed, and actually I think men did too, for the most part. This isn't very nice, but I'm just going to lay them down carefully so we can keep on going. Here we have a morning coat, which had formerly been called a frock coat, and it's a beauty. Has a matching vest. I don't know if there would have been matching pants or not, but this is what they used for formal events, called a morning coat at this period. At least according to my friend who knows a lot more about it than I do. Isn't that marvelous? I actually forgot I had that until I was digging around here. Now we're going to move up and put this behind. Put a beautiful morning coat to the back. Here's men's breeches or slacks, trousers, whatever they would have been called. But they have the buttons on them that was appropriate for the braces that you wore to keep your pants up. No belts, but buttons. See, so there's no button loops. There's just buttons for your suspenders, which they called braces back then. So this is quite a nice pair of slacks. And you know, I'll bet I got them at the same auction with the morning coat. Could be that that's what the fella had worn with it. This auction had me bringing home a lot of clothes for less than $10 per the lot. And here's another pair of men's slacks. Maybe those would have been the one with the buttons for suspenders. Otherwise, they're just like men's slacks are today. One of these had a, oh, this is one, had a hanky in it. So are we led to believe that men's hankies haven't even changed much? That could certainly use some OxyClean. Or we could leave it just the way it is. After all, it's old enough to deserve the respect of being left alone. This is a lady's auto coat, so I am just thrilled to have found that. Yeah, they were called automobiles or dusters, anything. There's several different things they were referred to. Look at the amount of buttoning to get from the top to the bottom of that. But it would keep your clothes clean as you bounce down the road in your new automobile, raising up dust like crazy. And here's one for men too. A man's automobile, or duster, or whatever you'd call it, and his scarf. Isn't that cool? Having a white scarf around your neck was all the rage, and that one looked to be monogrammed. So this is kind of the end of the, well, I'll just leave her there. We're kind of at the end of what I have for clothing that is mostly 1900. Now, these are kind of the 1910 period, for as much as you can really tell, because it's hard to tell when one decade ends and the other begins. But anyway, that should do it. Thank you very much for persevering and sticking with me. See you again.